The night was cold, and the streets were empty. A thin alien girl sat alone under a broken street lamp. Her skin was pale, her clothes were torn, and her eyes looked tired but strong. In her small hands, she held two toys. They were old and scratched, but to her, they were treasures. They were the only thing she had left from her childhood. She had kept them safe for years, hiding them whenever someone tried to take them away. These toys were her last comfort in a world that gave her nothing. But tonight, she was ready to let them go. Her mother was dying inside their little home. The woman could not even sit up anymore. Her breathing was heavy, and her face was losing color. The girl had searched everywhere for medicine, but no one would give it to her. In the city, aliens like her were treated as less than nothing. Humans ruled here, and they decided who lived and who died. The girl knew that without medicine, her mother would not survive the week. She looked at the toys in her hands and whispered, "I am sorry. I must sell you now." Her voice broke, but her eyes were steady. These toys could not cure her mother, but maybe, just maybe, they could buy her mother a chance to live. The streets were silent, only the wind moved. The girl sat, waiting, hoping someone would pass by. Hours went by, and her stomach growled with hunger, but she stayed. She would not leave. She would wait until someone noticed her. She would not give up. At last, footsteps echoed on the stones. The girl's head lifted. A man was walking down the road. He was human tall, dressed in clean clothes with strong steps that showed power. His face was calm, but his eyes were sharp, as if he had seen too much of the world already. He looked like someone who had money, someone who had choices. The girl's heart raced. This was her chance. She stood up quickly and stepped into the man's path. Her hands shook, but she held the toys out in front of her. "Please, sir," she said softly, almost whispering. "Will you buy my toys? I need money for medicine. My mother is sick." The man stopped. He looked down at her. For a moment, his eyes showed surprise. He had expected a beggar, maybe, but not a small alien child with such strange, desperate eyes. He glanced at the toys in her hands. They were worthless, just broken pieces of plastic and cloth. To any normal buyer, they were trash. But the way the girl held them, it was as if they were more than toys. The man frowned. "Why these?" "They are nothing." The girl's eyes filled with tears, but she did not let them fall. She pressed the toys closer to him. "They are all I have. Please, buy them. I cannot lose my mother too." Her words cut into the silence like a knife. The man stared at her. He saw the dirt on her clothes, the thinness of her arms, the way she shook from hunger. He saw her pain, raw and honest, but still he hesitated. People lied for money all the time. Could she be lying too? Yet something inside him whispered that she was telling the truth. He felt it in the way she stood, shaking but not moving away. She was not begging for herself, she was fighting for someone else. The man's hand moved slowly, reaching toward the toys. The girl's breath caught. She waited, her whole body tense. His fingers brushed against the old, worn surface of one toy. Suddenly, something stirred in his memory. A picture flashed in his mind, his own childhood, long ago. He had once held a toy just like that, back when he was poor. Back when every small gift felt like treasure. He pulled his hand back, staring at the girl with new eyes. She was not just a stranger. She was a mirror of what he once had been, weak, desperate, but unbroken. The girl's voice trembled. "Please, sir. Without medicine, she will die." The street was quiet again. The air grew heavy with suspense. Would the man walk away, leaving her to suffer alone? Or would he reach out and change everything with one choice? The man's lips pressed into a thin line. He looked at the toys once more, then at the girl's pleading face. And then, slowly, he said the words that made the girl's heart stop. "Take me to your mother." The girl froze when she heard his words. Her small mouth opened in shock, and she stared at the human as if she had not understood. For a moment, she thought she had imagined it. No human had ever spoken to her like that before. No one had ever said they wanted to see her mother. Her fingers tightened around the toys. Her heart beat so fast she could hardly breathe. You will come," she whispered, almost too softly for him to hear. The man's eyes stayed locked on her. He did not smile, and his face was unreadable, but his voice was steady. "Show me." The girl hesitated. Part of her wanted to believe him, but another part trembled with fear. What if this man was not kind? What if he wanted to take the toys and leave her with nothing? What if he hurt her mother instead of helping? But she had no choice. She had already risked everything by stopping him. If she let him go now, she might never have another chance. Slowly, she nodded and turned, motioning for him to follow. Her steps were small and careful, but her heart carried heavy hope. The man walked behind her, his tall figure looming in the dim light of the street. His boots made strong echoes on the stone road, while her bare feet moved silently. He watched her shoulders trembling as she led him through twisting alleys. After a long silence, he finally spoke. "Why me?" His voice was low, curious, but there was something sharp beneath it. The girl looked back at him. Her big eyes glistened in the shadows. "Because you stopped. Everyone else walks away. You did not." Her answer struck him harder than he expected. He turned his face aside, hiding his thoughts. They walked deeper into the poor quarter of the city. The air grew heavy with dust and smoke. Broken houses lined the streets, their walls cracked and their doors falling apart. The man wrinkled his nose at the smell of sickness that floated from the narrow homes. He knew this place. He had once walked these streets as a child. He had once hated the way people looked down on him, the way the rich pretended the poor did not exist. Now he was one of the rich. And yet, this child was pulling him back into a world he had tried to forget, at last. The girl stopped in front of a small, broken doorway. She bent down and pushed the door open with care. "Please," she whispered, "be quiet. My mother is weak." The man stepped inside. The room was small, almost empty. A thin blanket lay on the floor, and on it rested a woman. She was breathing heavily, her skin pale and damp with sweat. Her eyes were closed, and she looked more like a shadow than a living being. The man frowned. He had seen sickness before, but this was death knocking at the door. The girl dropped to her knees beside her mother. She touched the woman's hand gently. "Mama, I found someone. He will help us." Her voice broke as she looked up at the human. For the first time, the man's hard face softened. He saw how the girl's small hands shook as she held her mother's weak fingers. He saw the tears she tried to hide, and the way her eyes still burned with courage even though her heart was breaking. He sighed and crouched down, studying the sick woman. "What medicine does she need?" The girl bit her lip. "The kind only humans can buy. They keep it in the central market, but they will not sell it to me. Aliens like us are not allowed." The man's jaw tightened. He knew she was right. The laws of the city were cruel. Medicine that could save lives was locked away behind rules and power. He looked back at the toys still clutched in her hand. Broken toys. Worthless things. And yet, she had been ready to give them up to save her mother. The man asked, "You were ready to sell your last treasures, just for a chance?" The girl nodded. Her voice was barely a whisper. "I would sell my life, too, if it meant she could live." Her words pierced him like a blade. He looked at her again, and this time he saw not just a child, but a warrior. tiny warrior with nothing but love to keep her standing. He rose to his feet. "Then listen to me," he said firmly. "I will go to the market. But if I am seen helping you, I could be punished. Do you understand that?" The girl's eyes widened. She looked at him with shock, then with fear, and finally with hope. "You? You would risk that? For us?" The man did not answer at once. He turned his gaze toward the window, staring at the city lights in the distance. Inside his chest, two voices fought. One said, "Walk away. She is not your problem." The other whispered, "You were once like her. If you turn your back now, what does that make you?" Finally, he looked back at her. "If I do this, you must be ready. The guards will not forgive. If we are caught, they will show no mercy." The girl pressed the toys against her chest. Her small face looked pale but determined. "I am ready. I do not care what happens to me. I only care about saving her." Silence filled the room. The man stared at her for a long time. Then slowly his lips moved, forming the words that changed everything. "Tomorrow we go to the market together." The girl gasped. Her heart soared with hope. But in the shadows of the room, the man's eyes grew darker. Because he knew the truth, what they were about to do was not just dangerous. It was almost impossible, and if they failed, they would not live to try again. The night passed slowly. The little alien girl hardly slept. She sat beside her mother, watching her chest rise and fall with painful effort. Every cough made the girl's heart shake with fear. She held the toys close, whispering promises to them as if they could hear. "Tomorrow. Tomorrow he will help us. You will see, Mama will live." But in the corner of the room, the human man sat in silence. He leaned against the broken wall, his eyes fixed on the shadows. His face showed no fear, but inside his heart, memories stirred like restless ghosts. He had not told the girl the truth. He had once walked these very streets, not as a powerful man, but as a starving child. His father had died in a factory fire when he was only 7. His mother had begged for work, but had been turned away again and again. He remembered the days when his stomach ached from hunger and the nights when cold winds slipped through the cracks in their broken house. He had once owned a toy, too. Just one. It was given to him by a kind stranger long ago. A small wooden figure, carved and simple. He had held it close when life felt too heavy, and for a while, that toy had been his only friend. But one night, desperate for food, he had traded it away. He had never forgotten the shame of that moment. Now, looking at the alien girl holding her toys like they were life itself, he felt the old wound reopen. She reminded him too much of himself. The same hollow eyes, the same stubborn fire. That was why he had not walked away. That was why he had agreed to help her, but he also knew the cost. The Central Market was not a place for mercy. Guards patrolled every corner, and humans who broke the rules were punished harshly. Helping an alien by forbidden medicine was no small crime. If he was caught, he could lose everything he had built over the years, his wealth, his freedom, maybe even his life. Still, the girl's voice echoed in his ears. "I would sell my life to, if it meant she could live." The man closed his eyes. He had once thought the same about his mother, but she had died before he could save her. That was the truth he carried in silence. As the first light of dawn touched the sky, the girl stirred. Her eyes were tired but filled with hope. She looked at him with trust, the kind of trust that left no space for doubt. "You came back?" she whispered. He nodded. "I said I would." His voice was calm, but deep inside, his heart was uneasy. She stood, clutching the toys tightly, as if they gave her strength. "I am ready." He studied her for a moment. She was so small, so fragile, yet her spirit was unbreakable. He wondered if she even understood the danger. But then, maybe that was what gave her strength. Love so strong it did not care about fear. They left the little home and walked through the empty streets. The city was waking, shops opening, carts rolling, and voices rising. The man led the way, his steps firm, while the girl followed closely, her eyes darting to every shadow. She had never walked this far into the human parts of the city as they approached the outer walls of the market. The man slowed. His memories returned in sharp flashes. The noise of merchants shouting, the smell of spices, the clang of coins. He had once sneaked into this market as a boy, stealing crumbs of bread just to stay alive. He had been chased, beaten, and thrown out more than once. And now here he was, returning as someone powerful, but walking side by side with an alien child who carried only hope. The girl tugged at his sleeve. "You look sad." He shook his head. "I was only remembering." "Remembering what?" she asked, her big eyes searching his face. "Remembering that once was not much different from you," he admitted quietly. Her mouth fell open. But you are human. You are strong. You have money." He gave a bitter smile. "Not always. Once, I was poor. Poorer than you can imagine. I know what it means to beg. I know what it means to lose someone because no one cared to help." The girl stared at him, her small hands tightening on the toys. She whispered, "So, you understand me?" He nodded slowly. "Yes, I understand you more than you think." For a moment, they walked in silence. But the bond between them grew stronger, a bond made not of blood, but of pain. At last, the tall gates of the central market came into view. Guards in dark uniforms stood at the entrance, their eyes sharp, their weapons ready. Humans passed through with ease, but aliens were pushed aside or beaten if they dared approach. The man's jaw tightened. He had promised to help, but even he was not sure how they would pass unnoticed. The danger was real now, closer than ever. The girl looked up at him, fear flickering in her eyes, but she did not turn back. She whispered, "I trust you." Those words struck deep inside him. Trust was dangerous. Trust could get them killed. Yet hearing them, he felt a strange fire rise in his chest. He placed a hand on her shoulder. "Stay close. Do not speak. Do not look afraid. And whatever happens, do not let go of me." The girl nodded, her small fingers curling tightly around his sleeve. The man took a deep breath. His past, his pain, his regrets, all of it had led to this moment. He stepped forward toward the guarded gates, with the alien child by his side, and as the guard's eyes turned toward them, he knew one thing for certain. Once you carried the weight of your past, there was no turning back. The air inside the market was thick with noise and color. Merchants shouted prices, buyers argued, and the smell of spices mixed with the stench of sweat and dust. Humans walked freely, their pockets full of coins, while aliens stood at the edges, watched carefully by guards, never allowed to cross the main stalls. The human man walked with firm steps, and the little alien girl clung to his side, half hidden by his long coat. Her eyes darted left and right, wide with fear. She had never seen so much wealth in one place. Bright cloth, shining jewelry, baskets of food, all things she could never touch. But she did not care for these. Her eyes searched only for one thing, the medicine. The man's gaze stayed sharp. He knew this market well. Every corner was dangerous, every stall a risk. He spotted the guards scanning the crowd. Their eyes lingered on him, but then moved away. To them, he was only another rich human. They could not see the trembling alien child hiding beside him. The girl whispered, "Do you see it? Do you see the medicine?" He hushed her quickly. "Do not speak. Wait." She bit her lip and nodded, pressing the toys against her chest for courage. Finally, They reached the row of stalls where the healers sold their goods. Bottles of colored liquid lined the tables, powders in little jars, and rare herbs tied in bundles. Behind one stall, an old merchant stood, his eyes sharp as a hawk's. He noticed the man immediately and gave him a smile. "Ah, a fine customer," the merchant said smoothly. "Looking for something special?" The man leaned in. His voice was low and serious. "I need the cure for fever blood." The merchant's smile froze. His eyes narrowed. "That one is rare, expensive, and forbidden for outsiders." His gaze flicked briefly toward the girl, though she tried to hide behind the man's arm. The man's jaw tightened. He placed a heavy pouch of coins on the table. The sound of metal clinking filled the air. "You will sell it to me. Now." The merchant's eyes widened slightly. It was enough money to silence questions. He glanced around quickly, then bent down to fetch a small glass vial from a hidden shelf beneath the stall. The liquid inside glowed faintly blue, clear and pure. The girl's breath caught. Her eyes filled with tears. That vial so small was her mother's only hope. The merchant slid it forward slowly. "Take it and go, before someone sees." The man reached for it. "Stop." A harsh voice barked. The girl flinched. Guards were moving fast through the crowd, their armor clinking. One of them pointed directly at them. "You there? What are you hiding?" The man's heart pounded. He snatched the vial and slipped it into his coat. Then he grabbed the girl's hand. "Run!" The girl stumbled after him as he pushed through the crowd. Merchants shouted angrily as stalls tipped over, spilling goods onto the street. The guards gave chase, their boots striking hard against the ground. The girl gasped for air, her legs burning, but she refused to let go of the man's arm. "Don't lose me," she cried. "I won't." He growled, pulling her faster. They turned into a narrow alley, weaving between crates and broken carts. The man's mind raced. If they were caught with the medicine, there would be no mercy. Not for him, and certainly not for her. The girl's heart pounded in her chest. Every step brought her closer to hope, but also closer to danger. She thought of her mother, lying weak and pale, waiting for her. She thought of the promise she had whispered the night before. "Hold on, Mama. I am coming back at the end of the alley." A wall blocked their path. The girl froze, panic flooding her. "We're trapped." The guards shouted behind them, their voices growing louder. But the man's eyes scanned the wall quickly. A pile of wooden crates stood stacked high. He grabbed the girl and lifted her onto them. "Climb." She scrambled up, her small fingers clutching the rough wood. The man climbed after her, his strong hands pulling himself up. Just as the guards entered the alley, the two of them reached the rooftop and vanished into the maze of broken houses. The chase echoed through the streets, but they did not stop. They ran across rooftops, ducking into shadows, moving like hunted animals at last. When the sounds of the guards faded, they stopped to catch their breath. The girl fell to her knees, panting. She looked up at the man, her eyes shining with both fear and hope. "Do you still have it?" The man reached into his coat and pulled out the vial. The faint blue glow lit up the shadows around them. The girl gasped, tears rolling down her cheeks. "We did it. We really did it." The man nodded, though his chest still heaved from running. He looked at her small face, full of relief, and felt the weight of his choice. He had risked everything for her, for a dying woman he had never met. And yet, as he looked at the vial, he knew this was only the beginning. "Come," he said firmly. "We must get back to your mother before it's too late." The girl stood, holding the toys tight against her chest. She nodded, her voice breaking with emotion. "Thank you. Thank you." But as they turned to leave, the man felt eyes watching from the shadows. Someone had seen. Someone knew the medicine was theirs, but so was the danger. Asterisk. The rooftops were silent except for the sound of their hurried steps. The human man and the little alien girl ran through the shadows, their breaths heavy. The girl's heart pounded so loud she thought the guards could hear it from below. But she held on tightly to the man's sleeve, refusing to let go. In his coat, the vial of medicine pressed against his chest, to fragile hope glowing faintly blue. They had escaped the market, but the danger was not over. Behind them, horns echoed through the city. Guards were spreading, searching every alley, every rooftop. Someone had seen them. Someone had reported an alien child with a human man. The man stopped for a moment, scanning the maze of narrow streets below. His sharp eyes moved quickly, calculating. "We cannot go straight home," he muttered. "They will be waiting there." The girl looked up at him, her voice trembling. "But Mama, she needs it now. What if it's too late?" The man clenched his jaw. He hated the truth in her words. Every moment they delayed, the woman's life slipped closer to its end. But if they were caught on the way, the medicine would be lost forever. He crouched down, gripping the girl's shoulders. "Listen to me. We must be clever. If we walk into a trap, your mother will never see you again." The girl swallowed hard, her eyes filling with tears, but she nodded. She pressed her toys tightly against her chest, as if they could give her strength. The man led her through back paths and broken houses. They slipped through holes in fences, crawled under collapsed beams, and hid in shadows when footsteps passed. Twice, guards marched nearby, their boots shaking the ground. But the pair stayed still as statues until the danger moved on. Every step felt like walking on a knife's edge as the sun began to set. The city grew darker, but the search grew louder. Torches lit the streets and guards shouted orders. The man knew they were closing the net. The city was no longer safe for him. Not anymore. Finally, they reached the edge of the slums, close to the girl's home. Her heart leaped when she saw the broken roof in the distance. "We're close," she whispered, but the man raised a hand, stopping her. His eyes narrowed. Something was wrong. The street ahead was too quiet. He motioned for her to stay low as he crept forward, his hand brushing the hilt of the knife hidden at his belt. Then he saw them two guards standing near the girl's door, pretending to watch the street casually, but their eyes were sharp, waiting. The girl gasped softly. "They found us." The man turned to her quickly, pressing a finger to his lips. "Quiet. They are waiting for us. If we go there now, it is over." Her small hands trembled. Tears welled up, but she whispered, "We cannot leave her. She will die tonight." The man looked into her eyes and saw the storm inside them: fear, love, desperation. His chest tightened. He remembered his own mother, her weak face, her last breath. He had once been too late. He could not let this child suffer the same fate. He thought quickly. There was another way. The house had a back entrance, small, broken, almost forgotten. He had seen it when he first entered. He crouched to the girl's level. "Do you trust me?" Her eyes widened, but she nodded fiercely. "Yes, with everything." He felt the weight of those words settle in his chest. He took her hand firmly. "Then follow me. Stay silent. No matter what you hear." Together, they slipped through the shadows, circling the guards. The man moved like a hunter, his steps silent, his eyes sharp. The girl followed closely, her small heart racing with every sound. They reached the back of the house. The broken door creaked as he pushed it open, and for a moment, both froze, afraid the sound had been heard. But no shouts came. Inside, the air was heavy and still. The mother lay where they had left her, her breathing weaker now, her skin pale as the moon. The girl rushed to her side, tears spilling freely. "Mama, we're here." We have it, we have the medicine. The man pulled the vial from his coat. The blue glow filled the room, casting strange light on the walls. He knelt beside the woman, carefully opening the vial. But before he could give it, the sound of boots thundered outside. Voices barked orders. The guards had heard. The girl's head snapped up, panic in her eyes. They're coming. The man gritted his teeth. He placed the vial in the girl's hands. Give it to her, quickly. She hesitated, fear shaking her. But what about you? He drew his knife and stood, his tall figure blocking the door. His voice was steady, almost calm. I will hold them off. Do not stop until she drinks every drop. The girl's tears blurred her vision, but she clutched the vial tightly and turned to her mother. Her small hands shook as she poured the glowing liquid into her mother's lips. Outside, fists pounded on the door. The man raised his weapon, his eyes cold and sharp. He had lived his whole life fighting to survive. Tonight, he would fight for someone else. The girl whispered, Please. Please wake up, Mama. The door cracked under the force of the guards. The man took one last breath and stepped forward. The medicine was almost gone. The mother stirred faintly, her chest rising with new strength. But the door burst open, and the night exploded with danger. The door exploded inward with a crash. Splinters of wood flew across the room as armed guards stormed inside. Their torches lit the small, broken house with harsh orange flames. The human man stood tall in front of the girl and her mother, his knife gleaming in the dim light. His shadow stretched across the walls like a giant. Step away. One of the guards barked. His voice was sharp and merciless. You are under arrest. Helping an alien is treason. The man did not move. His chest rose and fell steadily, his grip firm on the knife. Behind him, the little alien girl crouched close to her mother, clutching the empty vial with shaking hands. Her mother's eyes fluttered open, weakly the medicine was already working. Though her strength was not yet fully back. The girl whispered, Mama? Hold on, please hold on. The guards advanced, weapons raised. The man's eyes narrowed. He had no chance of winning against so many. But he was not fighting for victory, he was fighting for time. Run, he whispered to the girl without turning his head. Her eyes widened. No, I can't leave you. You must, he said firmly, his voice like steel. Take your mother. Find another way out. Tears filled her eyes, but she obeyed. She slid her arm under her mother's shoulder, helping her sit up slowly. The woman was weak, but she could stand with support. The girl's small body shook with effort, but she refused to give up. The first guard lunged. The man blocked with his knife, sparks flashing as steel clashed. He pushed forward, shoving the soldier back. Another guard came from the side, and the man spun, striking with quick, brutal force. The girl gasped. He moved like someone who had fought many times before. Someone who carried scars unseen. But there were too many. They circled him, shouting, blades glinting. The girl dragged her mother toward the back door, but more guards appeared there, blocking the way. Her heart sank. Trapped, she looked at the toys in her free hand, the last pieces of her childhood. Desperate, she hurled one across the room. It struck a torch, knocking it to the ground. Fire licked across the floor, catching on dry wood. The guards shouted in alarm as flames began to spread. The man seized the chance. With a roar, he struck hard, knocking two soldiers aside. Go! He shouted, his voice thundering over the crackle of fire. The girl pulled her mother through the smoke, coughing, eyes stinging. The flames spread quickly, swallowing the walls, turning the house into a trap. Outside, neighbors screamed as the fire lit up the night. Shadows ran through the streets, and more guards gathered. But the chaos gave the girl and her mother cover. The man fought his way toward them, sweat and blood dripping down his face. His knife flashed, his body moved with desperate strength. Every blow he struck was for them, not for himself. Finally, he reached the girl, grabbing her arm. "This way," he barked. He led them through the smoke to a side passage, a small gap between crumbling walls. They stumbled through, coughing, gasping, but alive. The girl's chest burned. Her throat raw, but she did not let go of her mother. She clung to her with every bit of strength she had. Behind them, guards shouted and cursed, but the fire blocked their path. The man pushed forward, leading them through the twisting alleys. His mind raced. They had to escape the city before dawn. If they stayed, every soldier would be hunting them. At last, they reached a quieter street, hidden in shadow. The mother leaned heavily against the girl, her breathing shallow but stronger than before. The girl looked at the man, her face streaked with soot and tears. "You saved us. You saved her." The man shook his head. His eyes were grim. "Not yet. This city will not stop hunting us. You must leave it behind." Her heart twisted. This had always been her home, broken as it was. But now it was a cage. She glanced at her mother, then back at him. "Where will we go?" He looked into the distance, toward the dark hills beyond the city walls. "There is a place, a safe place. But reaching it will not be easy." The girl's fingers tightened around the toys, though one was gone forever in the fire. She held the last one close, whispering a promise to herself. "I will not lose her. Not again." Suddenly, the sound of boots echoed again. Guards had found their trail. Torches lit the end of the street. The man cursed under his breath. "They're faster than I thought. We must move now." The girl helped her mother to her feet again, her small body shaking but determined. "We're ready," she said, her voice fierce, despite the fear in her eyes. The man glanced at them both. The alien child with fire in her heart, and the weak mother clinging to life. He had risked everything for them already, but he knew this was only the beginning. He tightened his grip on the knife. "Then stay close. Do not stop, no matter what." The guards charged, their shouts echoing. The girl gasped, her mother stumbled, and the man raised his weapon once more. The night was burning behind them, the future uncertain ahead of them, and together they ran into the darkness. The night air was sharp and cold as they ran through the narrow streets. Behind them, the glow of fire painted the sky orange, and the angry shouts of guards echoed through the alleys. The little alien girl held tightly onto her mother's frail hand, her small body trembling with fear but refusing to stop. Beside her, the human man moved like a shield, his knife gleaming in the torchlight whenever the soldiers drew too close. They were hunted. Everyone knew it. The whole city would soon be awake, searching for them. And yet, in the girl's chest, a tiny spark of hope burned brighter than the fear. Her mother had drunk the medicine. Already her breathing was stronger. The girl whispered to herself, "She will live. She will live." The guards cornered them near the marketplace ruins. Their torches lit the square, blocking every exit. The man pulled the girl and her mother behind him. His chest rose and fell heavily, but his eyes burned with defiance. He knew he could not fight them all. One of the guards stepped forward, his armor clinking. His voice thundered, "You betrayed your kind. You chose an alien over your own people. Hand them over, and perhaps we will let you live." The man's jaw clenched. He stood taller, his voice strong. "You speak of people and kind, but you know nothing of what it means to be human." The girl looked up at him, wide-eyed. His words struck something deep inside her. The guards laughed bitterly and raised their weapons. The man tightened his grip on the knife, ready for the last fight. But then something unexpected happened. From the shadows, voices rose. Doors opened. Faces appeared, poor humans, merchants, even a few brave aliens who had lived in hiding. One by one, they stepped into the square. Their eyes burned with quiet anger, their voices murmuring. Enough. The guards turned in surprise. An old man stepped forward, his cane tapping the ground. "We are tired of your cruelty." That child only wanted to save her mother. And he pointed at the human man. He showed more humanity tonight than any of you with your weapons and laws. Others joined in. A woman shouted, "Let them go." Another voice added, "If you touch them, you touch us all." The guards hesitated. They had numbers, but the crowd was growing. Torches flared, lighting up the determined faces of ordinary people who had decided they would no longer look away. The little girl's heart raced. For the first time in her life, she saw humans and aliens stand together. Not enemies, not strangers, just people refusing to bow to fear. The lead guard snarled, "Stand down, or you will all suffer." But no one moved. The crowd stood firm, shoulder to shoulder, a wall of courage against steel. The human man's chest tightened. He had spent his life believing that kindness was weakness, that survival meant standing alone. Yet here, in the middle of danger, strangers chose to stand for him. For the girl? For the mother, the guards cursed, realizing they could not win against the will of the people. One by one, they stepped back, retreating into the night. Their torches faded, their threats lost in the dark. Silence filled the square. Then, slowly, the people turned to the man and the girl. The old man with the cane gave a nod. "Go quickly, before the soldiers return. Take her to safety." The man gave a short bow, gratitude heavy in his eyes. The girl clutched her mother tightly, tears streaming down her cheeks, not of fear, but of relief. They slipped away through the crowd, guided by whispers and hidden paths. No one betrayed them. No one turned them in. Humanity had chosen to protect instead of destroy, at last. Beyond the city walls, the night opened into quiet hills. The stars stretched above them, vast and endless. The girl helped her mother lie down on the grass, her breathing now steady, her eyes filled with weak but real life. The girl looked at the man, her hands still holding the single toy she had saved. She walked to him slowly and placed it in his hands. "These were all I had," she said softly. "But now, they belong to you. You saved her. You saved us." The man looked down at the toy in his palm. For a moment, he could not speak. Memories of his own childhood, of hunger and loss, filled his mind. He had once given up his toy for survival. Now this child gave hers for gratitude. He closed his hand around it, his throat tight. For the first time in years, he felt the weight of tears in his eyes. The girl smiled faintly, her face tired but shining with hope. "You are not just human. You are family." The man knelt, resting a hand on her small shoulder. "And so are you." The stars above seemed to burn brighter, as if the universe itself had witnessed their bond. A bond not of blood, but of sacrifice, courage, and love. In that moment, it was clear. Humanity was not about race or power or walls. Humanity was about the choice to stand for another, even when the cost was everything, and because of one alien girl. One dying mother and one man who remembered his own pain. The world had changed if only a little, but sometimes a little was enough to start a fire that no one could ever put out.